You may know some of the reasons Anonymous is protesting against the practices of organized Scientology. You know about Lisa McPherson, the Scientologist who was examined by medical professionals and was recommended for hospitalization but instead died in the care of Scientologists. You know about Paulette Cooper, who wrote a book critical of Scientology and was framed with making bomb threats, which were faked by leaders in the Church of Scientology, all of which was uncovered by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. You know about Operation Snow White, the largest infiltration of the United States government, orchestrated by leaders in the Church of Scientology, and resulting in the conviction of Mary Sue Hubbard, and the naming of L. Ron Hubbard as an unindicted co-conspirator. However, is any of that relevant today?
The problem is with the corruption in the church, not with the church itself. Yeah, and
Never no proof of corruption at all. What corruption are you talking about?
Operation Snow White and 11 Scientologists going to prison for basically infiltrating the government.
Okay, and that occurred when?
In the mid to late 70s.
Right, and it has not occurred since then. It was some individuals who made some mistakes, and they paid for those mistakes. I think that's a closed book. So let's get past that. That's not the Church of Scientology, okay?
Most religions have some actions in their past which are reprehensible. There's no reason to hold Scientology to a higher standard, so long as they put this abusive behavior behind them. Except, they haven't. Fair game is a policy written by L. Ron Hubbard to instruct on how to deal with Scientology's critics, also known as SPs. It includes the order that SPs can be tricked, sued, lied to, or destroyed. Scientologists today claim that this policy was canceled by Hubbard. Let's ignore for a moment the kind of person you would have to be in order to come up with this kind of policy in the first place, and see if the policy actually was indeed canceled. Reading here, it seems that Scientology is right. Well, fair enough. L. Ron was only human after all, and at least he had the moral fortitude to admit a mistake. But wait, there's more. If we continue reading this cancellation order, we discover that in fact the only thing that has been canceled is the practice of declaring people fair game, not fair game itself. As this policy indicates, fair game was causing Scientology to have bad public relations. And in fact, this policy letter does not change in any way the treatment or handling of SPs. So how does this affect Anonymous? Well, for one, Scientology has taken to publicly branding Anonymous as a terrorist organization.
The actions of Anonymous will not interrupt the normal activities of the church, servicing its parishioners and the local community, and we're in coordination with the police to minimise the negative impact of this terrorist group. Thank you very much.
Anonymous, KKK, Nazi, it's the same thing.
When you're talking about this group and referring to them as cyber terrorists, in our case we're dealing with things like 96 death threats, bomb threats, acts of vandalism, these kinds of things that are very destructive and very harmful.
Well, making death threats would be a terrorizing activity. Except that this kind of accusation doesn't hold water when you are discussing a loose-knit, leaderless organization like Anonymous. Let me illustrate the absurdity of Scientology's claims.
Hey, it's the president. Good day, mate. We're going to be firing kangaroo missiles at your country in the next hour.
What? What is this? Who are you?
Why, I'm Australian.
And now for another fast-breaking news story.
Ridiculous, right? Anonymous is a leaderless organization that follows no mandate other than its own whims. If someone performs an illegal action and calls themselves anonymous while doing so, This cannot be categorized as the actions of all people who call themselves anonymous. And if that wasn't enough...
You are leveling these accusations at this group. The FBI, which is looking into it, says it has found nothing to connect this group Anonymous with what you're talking about, or death threats against members of the church. The FBI at this point says it has no reason to believe that charges would be leveled against this group.
But no matter what the evidence, Scientology has gone after individuals as well. They have taken their knowledge of people's private personal information and used it to intimidate protesters.
And then around 1:15, I got into this interesting story where I got fair games pretty hardcore. These two guys came out with signs that had my picture without a mask on them and my real name and my address, and then they had the signs with arrows pointing at me, and they followed me around for like a half hour. Very intimidating. It was like they knew who I was and they just singled me out. And then after I left, we ended up getting tailed for like a half hour by a silver van.
In this clip, a leader of a Canadian Scientology organization comes out and talks to an unmasked protester.
It's quite warm outside, and I'm honestly not afraid because I highly doubt you guys. Not only that, we wouldn't even bother. We could run, of course, you know. I highly doubt it.
Currently, anonymous member Greg Hausch from Boston is being charged with criminal harassment against the Church of Scientology. They claim that he is somehow orchestrating all the other protests, that he is behind many of the anti-Scientology online videos, and basically suggests that he has executive power over the actions of Anonymous. And how did they come to this conclusion?
I ended up here because I'm the one who's actually filed for the permits for our protests.
You see, in order to conduct protests legally in many locations, a few Anonymous must disclose their identities to authorities in order to get permits. Doing so exposes you to the litigious behavior of the Church of Scientology. Is Greg the leader of Anonymous? No, of course not. He's simply one of the few Anons they can get their hands on because he exposed himself by getting permits with the city.
The reason I am here is because I put my name on the permits. No one else was doing it. I figured someone had to. I made the phone calls. I put my name out there. The day that I signed that paperwork, I knew I would be sitting in court. I knew that this would be coming because it's what they do.
Even if you dismiss all the evidence for Greg's innocence, you need only look at the Church's own writing on the purpose of legal prosecution to become skeptical of their claims against Greg. In this document by L. Ron Hubbard, he speaks specifically to how Scientology should use the legal system. First, look at his philosophical approach to dealing with people who scrutinize Scientology. And I call to your attention the situation of any besieged fortress. If that fortress does not make sallies, does not send forth patrols to attack and harass, and does not utilize itself to make the besieging of it a highly dangerous occupation, that fortress may, and most often does, fall. The only way to defend anything is to attack. And if you ever forget that, then you will lose every battle you ever engaged in, whether it is in terms of personal conversation, public debate, or a court of law. Never be interested in charges. Do yourself much more charging and you will win. And the public, seeing that you won, will then have a communication line to the effect that Scientologists win. Don't ever let them have any other thought than that Scientology takes all of its objectives. In other words, Scientology has a mandate to inform the public that if you go against Scientology, you will lose, so don't try. And here, he discusses to what ends the legal system should be used. In this particular example, he is addressing copyright abuse. The purpose of the suit is to harass and discourage rather than to win. The law can be used very easily to harass, and enough harassment on somebody who is simply on the thin edge anyway, well knowing that he is not authorized, will generally be sufficient to cause his professional decease. If possible, of course, ruin him utterly. So that is what Greg has to look forward to. It should make anyone question the motives of Scientology's case against Greg. In this video, we see the Scientology's lawyer discussing the merits of their case against Greg, and by extension, their complaints against Anonymous.
They wear masks to intimidate and harass people. They put masks on, scarves and bandanas to intimidate the church members.
Despite repeatedly explaining that it is because of the church's fair game policy that Anonymous wears masks to protect itself, the church continues to claim that Anonymous is out to inspire fear. Here is a sample of the kinds of costumes that Anonymous members have worn to protests. See for yourself if you find them intimidating. We have bubble-blowing Afro Anonymous, Bunny Mask Anonymous, Free Hugs Anonymous, Sunshine Mario Anonymous, Iron Man with Bunny Ears Anonymous, Piggyback Anonymous, Horseface Anonymous, Mobility Scooter Anonymous, Nazi Suit Anonymous, whoa, wait, Nazi Suit Anonymous? That is kind of intimidating. But wait a second, that's not an Anonymous member, that's a Scientologist. That's right, in 1979, Scientologists protested outside the Clearwater Sun's offices, brandishing swastikas, wearing full Nazi uniforms, shouting, "Sieg Heil!" And they thought it was such a good idea, they did it again in Australia. And if pictures tell 1,000 words, video says so much more. Let's see how Anonymous protests against its critics.
The basic rule is, if anything happens, sit down. Law enforcement knows that we're here. If anyone's acting out of line, whether it's a Scientologist or another protester or another member of Anon, just sit down, point them out to law enforcement. Don't give them anything that they can use against us because they're trying very, very hard.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you.
And in contrast, here's how Scientologists greet a Scientology critic who will land on American soil after a long flight from Germany.
Nazi criminal, go back to Germany! Nazi criminal, go back to Germany! You're not welcome! This lady is a criminal! Go back to Germany! You are bad! You are bad!
I wear a mask too, but not because I want to intimidate you or any Scientologist, but because it's the only responsible way I can speak out and not expose my friends and family and even myself to their fair game policy. For this reason, Anonymous took to the streets once again on May 10, 2008 to protest the Church of Scientology in an operation they called Fair Game Stop.
Why do you attack Scientology?
Because of the criminal activities of your organization?
Good point. Criminal activities. What are your criminal activities, Mark? Because that's why you're here. You've got your own criminal activities you want to hide.
Oh, I'm sure you're a child molester yourself. Did you take time off from beating your wife to come down here?
You're doing something. It's proof that you're afraid. You're afraid of the success of Scientology because people are going to find out your crimes. What are they, Mark? Spit them out. Get it off your chest. Are you getting paid to do this? Is someone paying you to upset other people? Why are you here trying to interpolate people and upset people?
Anonymous, no, you are not terrorists. You are smart whiz kids. You were taught how to use the fantastic tool, the internet. Use it. Don't abuse it.
We'll hit the money.
There's something else I really like about Scientology. Scientology is not, if you get slapped, turning the other cheek. Scientology, if you get slapped, hit the guy in the balls. We don't mess around.
No.
You mess around with Scientology, God help you.
You'll never understand.